Good day again, everybody. We're now into the last 3 sessions of our course as we've been moving through early church history. We come to kind of fill in some gaps this time, dealing with some of the political and military goings-on that have been in the background as we've been focused for the last few weeks more on internal matters to the church. Obviously, in a course on church history, we focus quite heavily on bishops and doctrines and liturgical developments and mission activities and things like that. But it's also important to be aware of what is going on in the Roman Empire, in Europe in this time, because it definitely leaves a mark. It shapes what the church experiences and how the church unfolds in that time and all the way up through to the Middle Ages. And so we're going to deal this week with the fall of Rome and with the series of attacks on Rome, the sacking of Rome, the barbarian invasions of the Roman Empire, and the gradual decline and fall of the western portion of the former Roman Empire, including the city of Rome itself. St. Augustine was lying sick and dying in North Africa in the year 430, and he was writing, and as he was, the Vandals were laying siege to his city, trying to conquer his city as a part of establishing a beachhead in North Africa from which they could then launch an attack to try to capture the city of Rome. During the Council of Chalcedon in 451, Pope Leo the Great was actually stuck in Rome because he was waiting to see if another group of invaders, the Huns, were going to destroy the city. Our opening quote for today reflects on this time in church history and shows the kind of disillusionment or the worry that would have been in people's minds as this great city of Rome seemed to be disappearing. How was the church going to go on with Rome not functioning in the same way as it had for so many generations? St. Augustine writes in The City of God around the year 410 in response to that first sack of the city of Rome these words: "Accordingly, 2 cities have been formed by 2 loves. The earthly city by the love of self, even to the contempt of God. The heavenly city by the love of God, even to the contempt of the self. The former, in a word, glories in itself, the latter in the Lord. For the one seeks the glory of men, but the greatest glory of the other is God, the witness of conscience. The one lifts up its head in its own glory. The other says to its God, Thou art my glory, and the lifter up of my head. In the one, the princes and the nations it subdues are ruled by the love of ruling. In the other, the princes and the subjects serve one another in love, the latter obeying while the former take thought for all. The one delights in its own strength, represented in the persons of its rulers. The other says to its God, I will love thee, O Lord, my strength." To kind of paraphrase that for St. Augustine, Rome might be gone, but the Christian is ultimately a citizen of another world. And therefore we can carry on in hope and without fear whatever the particular political circumstances might be in which we live. And it's a timely message. Certainly was then and is today. As we get into some of the subtleties of this history and the events that precipitated it, might be prone to say, well, why are we studying all of this stuff? Why are we studying these military attacks and these changing borders and migration patterns and things like that? It seems a bit out of place, but it really isn't. We cover these things not because they're important for understanding European and world history in general, but because of the major effects that they have on the church. In particular, over this class and the next, we'll be paying attention to the way that some of this history laid the foundation for the church's changing role in secular society during the Middle Ages. And this will include some discussion of the development of the papacy under the great popes, Pope Leo and Pope Gregory. We'll talk a little bit about Leo this week and Gregory in the next. In many ways, it was this experience of the city of Rome during and after the invasions that played a decisive role in bringing the person and the office of the primacy of the Bishop of Rome to an even greater prominence at this time. And our reading of Pope Leo's tome highlighted a little bit about that when we read that some time ago. The authority that increasingly became associated with and formalized around the papacy. Leading into next week's class, we'll have an opportunity to consider how the impact that the unity of the church would take as the empire faded in the west, but carried on in the eastern part of the empire impacted things. We'll look at how the after effects of these invasions would lead someone like Pope Gregory the Great to think, well, now it's time for us to go out from the old lands of the Roman Empire and launch missions into the northern regions, to the western regions, into present-day Germany and France and Britain. All these developments would forever change the church and leave a significant stamp on it that we still see today. And so this conversation about barbarians and invaders is very much a significant part of the story of Christianity.